time. I can do assignments in my own time. But I don't know, like with maybe some like reading stuff, like reading and comprehension, that's kind of where I struggle a bit.
Hmm.
So it would be nice to have like that in class, like, okay, let's read this and talk about it, and in case there's anything that you don't understand. So that's kind of where
Yep.
I struggle a bit.
Okay. Okay. Fair. And I see you've got your pup next to you. I just saw an ear come into the frame.
Yes. Yeah, she was barking at the beginning.
Got it.
Sorry if I like wasn't fast
No,
enough
no,
to
no,
mute
no. I've got
myself.
one. You can't. One of my two is parked on my side of the door. The other one's parked on the other side of the door. There we
Yeah.
go. What a great face. Okay. All right, Zachary. What do you think about this asynchronous online world in which we now live?
I don't like it at all, to be completely honest with you. The Zoom, like the classes with like mandatory Zoom meetings, those are better because there's actual class time.
Yep.
The first semester with it, nobody knew what they were doing. The Zoom meetings were just like everybody sort of sat there and didn't do anything. Now that people are sort of figuring it out, it's a little better. Like the online only classes, I don't like them at all. I can't, I'm not self-motivated enough to be able to do stuff, especially when it's not like directly like engaging to me. If it's not something I'm actively very, very interested in, I find it very hard to focus on.
Yeah, that's fair. And actually, believe it or not, in my humble opinion, this ought to be one of the most interesting classes you ever take. The problem is it's hard to make it interesting when all you're looking at are words on a page, or words on a screen in this case. Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my second point, which is the way this course is designed is frankly not the way I designed it when I taught it live, but not my choice, right? So we have to go with what we're given. And it takes what really should be this vitally interesting topic, because we can't avoid ethics. It's just life, right? And it turns it into this sort of two-dimensional study of the thoughts of long dead philosophers, all of which are very important, don't get me wrong. But it misses a broader context, right? I mean, ethics is more than just a study of philosophy. Ethics is a study of everything from evolutionary biology to culture to day-to-day life to the search for truth. It's a much bigger topic than what the asynchronous online version presents. And I hope, even if we only do these from time to time, I can give you a little flavor of that. And you'll find it a bit easier to stay motivated. So fair enough. Thanks for that. Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, I would kind of agree with what Zachary said. It's just like too easy for me to procrastinate, but I also like being able to like regulate my schedule, especially like with working and stuff.
Yep.
I kind of can do it whenever, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, there are some upsides. I mean, personally, I don't think they outweigh the downsides, but the upside is, yeah, you're more flexible. You can work whatever schedule you want to work. You can log on and do this stuff at 2 a.m. if you want to, and some people do, which I find interesting. First semester we did this. It's funny. Everybody sort of continued to think in terms of this hardwired linear schedule, right? So everything was due by 8:30 on a Monday morning, and it was all, it was like we're cracking the whip. And finally, it was actually the faculty that pushed back against that and said, why are we doing this? These poor students, first of all, we've just taken away 50% of their educational content. And now on top of that, right? And the reason we went asynchronous online in theory was to make it eminently flexible for people so they could cope with COVID more effectively. And then we're continuing to act as if it's the old way. So that's the reason now you won't see the hard and fast dates in there. You've got the content separated by week. And my wisdom always is, you don't get too far behind, don't pull too far ahead, and you should be fine. So fair enough. Patrick, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I like more like structured classes.
Okay.
Like where you go in like every like Monday or so and you learn. But that works better for like real technical classes, like programming, where you sort of have to sort of be shown what to do.
Yep.
And ethics is more like self-study and like just reading.
Yeah, it's also much more conceptual. And the only thing that makes ethics come alive ultimately is to apply it, right?
Yeah, because like programming is either it works or it doesn't.
Right.
Ethics is more like you study it, you think about it.
Yep. Yeah,
Much
exactly.
more introspective.
When I was doing this class live, every single class began with an ethical dilemma, right? In fact, one of my students said after I think we were four weeks in, she said, every time I come in here, you make my head hurt, but in a good way. Because rather than just say, okay, today we're going to talk about the categorical imperative and Immanuel Kant, instead, let's take what somebody like Kant thinks, or what somebody like Plato thought, or Socrates, or you name it, and let's apply it real world and see if it stands the test of time and stands the test of our lives. And again, that's something I really can't do here. So we try to sprinkle in a little bit of it, but we'll do our best. Britton, you came in a little late. What we were talking about, I was just asking everybody to give me a quick reaction to trying to learn this way in this asynchronous online world as opposed to being live in the classroom. Any thoughts?
Hi, sorry for coming in a little bit
That's
late.
all right. I'm glad you're here.
So I actually have a question.
Sure.
I might have said this on the schedule, but I might as well just go ahead and ask you now. The quizzes are due every few weeks after we finish the chapters, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically in this world, the quizzes do the quizzes as you complete the material and you feel ready to do them.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. In other words, there are no hard and fast. If I don't see it by Friday at whatever, I'm going to, no, we're just not doing it that way.
I gotcha.
Okay. So you've got a little more flexibility. I think the only thing I have blocked from your view is the midterm and the final. Figuring I don't want people to pull that far ahead.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think you can see pretty much all the course content now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. And thanks to Brighton's good catch the other day, I realized that the Credo stuff was missing. So I got to put that back in there. And by the way, please look, there's nothing you wouldn't want to watch the way we have to put these courses together with very little time. It's not a pretty sight. It's usually happens very quickly. And even though I'm got a lot of years of instructional design, D2L is not always my friend. So if you do see something missing or something doesn't make sense to you, please shoot me an email right away, because chances are you just got there first and there could be something that I didn't catch. So, all right. Okay. Any other overall questions before I dive into a little content here? Questions about anything that's bothering you, etc.? We doing good? So far, so good? All right. Fair enough. Yeah, let me do the share screen here for a second. So in the spirit, and this slide deck was in your, is in the course content, and you may have already seen it, but is that full screen? Okay. Are you guys seeing that full screen, or am I just seeing it part screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
It is.
Yeah,
it
it's
is
full screen.
Okay, cool. I have to pull it full screen again. All right, there we go. Yeah, this content was in the learning material, but I'd love to talk some of the stuff through with you, because by looking at some of these, we get to the heart of some of the stuff that confounds us about ethics. All right, so these are classics. There is no one answer. So I'm going to toss these out, and I'd like to get your reactions. All right, here's the sniper dilemma. An Army sniper has a murderous terrorist who's taken many American lives and has been hunted for months in his sight at last. An unidentified man is standing very close to the terrorist, and the sniper can't guarantee that if he takes a shot, he won't seriously injure or kill this man. The question is, should he take the shot? What do you think? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just what within your ethical construct, what do you think? Brighton, I can see the wheels turning up there. What are you thinking?
Could you go back to the other slide again?
Oh, sure. I can.
I like to take another look at it.
Hang on a second. Where's backspace on this keyboard? Oh, here. We'll just do it this way. There we go.
So I can just say whatever my thoughts are.
Absolutely, sure.
So the question here is it a reasonable assumption to assume that this murderous terrorist is, well, first you have to consider if justice is something that's valued here. For me personally, I would say yes. Now the thing is, you have to assume, you have to ask yourself if it's reasonable to assume if this man is going to kill people in the future.
And for purposes of this dilemma, yeah, this guy,
Yeah.
yes, he's done it in the
he's
past.
still
He
active.
continues to do it. So he is a very real and present threat to future lives, right? So what you've got is this, you've got this calculus. Do I take the risk of killing a potentially innocent person to save uncounted lives in the future, uncounted American lives in the future? And again, in this particular case, the potentially innocent life is another man who's walking next to him. So given that calculus, what would you do and why?
For me, it's a pretty straight yes, because I feel like it's a bit unfair to value one life in that moment over potential other innocent lives.
Okay.
So
all right. So you would be a consequentialist, saying that in this case, potentially doing something harmful to one life would be offset by the benefit of saving other lives. Is that a fair way to summarize your idea?
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts? Anybody want to push back on that and say, yeah, but wait a minute. Well, all right. How about if I do this? How about if I change the game a little bit? All right. So what if the unidentified man was a woman? Would that change your thoughts? Britton, since you're the one that took the lead here, would it make a difference to you if it was a man or a woman?
for me personally, no. That doesn't change anything. I can understand why it would.
You'll kill innocent lives no matter who they are. Good for you. You're a hell of a guy, Britton. We love you.
Very proud of that.
I get it. All right. Anybody want to? Would this make a difference to you, Patrick, Hannah, Zachary, Brighton? Anyone?
I agree with Britton, with what Britton said. Did I say it right? Is it your name? All right. Yeah, I agree with what he said. I would do the same thing, but I gotta say, the question is, should he take the shot? But I think what it's really trying to ask is, would you?
Well, yeah, exactly. This is asking you what you would do if you were in his position. That's correct.
Because those are two different viewpoints. Should
really?
he?
So
yeah,
in other words, you would potentially have a different standard for yourself versus him. That's interesting.
I wouldn't have a different standard, but it's easy to say, oh yeah, he should have done it versus would you do it?
Okay.
Is what I'm saying. I think it should be the same standard, but
that's an interesting wrinkle. I'd never, you know what? Thank you for challenging me, Zachary. I never thought of it quite that way before. Something that you personally might not do because you're not a trained sniper. You might think that someone who obviously he volunteered to serve, this is what he's chosen. So that would put the choice in a different category. That's interesting. Okay, fair enough. All right, so nobody wants to push back that man, woman, same thing, right? We all on the same page about that so far? Okay.
I think so, because I mean they're both innocent.
Well,
they're just like innocent bystanders. Well, as far as we know, they're just unidentified. So I'm not going to assume like whether they've done any good or bad. But also, I don't think that whether they've done any good or bad should deem whether they should die or not. I don't believe that like I should be in charge of like the fate of someone else based on their actions.
Okay, that's fair. So life is life. You're not going to get involved with whether that's good life, bad life, quality life. Life is life. Fair enough. Next, what if the unidentified man was a child? So we took the man away, put the woman in there. Now it's a child. Does that give you more pause?
I think so. Yeah, I would definitely be like, oh, I would hesitate.
A minute. You just said, yeah.
I know, but it's a child. It's
why does that make a difference?
because they're just like, they're younger, they're just more innocent, you know, they don't know, like, I
So
know
what
this,
you're
I'm
saying,
like
and
backpedaling now.
I'm not picking on you, Brighton, because you know we all have this reaction. Thank you for stepping up and being willing to step in the landmine, because we all do this, right? On the one
Yeah.
hand, we want to say it's not for me to judge. Life has value, and whether you choose to take the shot or not. But then when we really start to push the question, we find that we really are making implicit judgments, because the implicit judgment is that a child is probably a heck of a lot more innocent than an adult's going to be, right? So this is happening in the back of your head, but we're not even conscious of it until it's
Right.
put in front of us. Any other thoughts? What do you think? Would it make a difference if it was a child? Same, again, you potentially could kill this one innocent life, maybe innocent life. I guess with a child, definitely innocent life, but you know you would save hundreds, perhaps thousands of American lives. Would that make a difference if it was a child? Anybody else?
For me, once again, it would probably not.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm honestly not sure, because if it's an adult, you can almost say that they would understand why you did it. But with a child, you can't explain to a 5-year-old, or you can try.
That's interesting. So as you do the calculus, the ability of the potentially innocent life to understand the rationale for why it could be taken makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Very
or even if, because the original wording was seriously injure or kill them, so like by the off chance that they survive, and you know they have to live with like a missing leg, or you know some their life is forever changed, and then
Right.
you have to try to explain to them, why did this happen to me at such a young age? Like it's so unfair, like, you know, I didn't do anything, because I'm assuming that's kind of maybe what a child would think, you know, that life is unfair, like
Yeah.
if this were to happen to them. So then it's just like, you know, if the sniper were to think about that child, and it's like, man, like I did that to this one child for, like, you know, the safety of everyone else, like I don't think anyone else would think anything of it, but in the sniper's mind, or in my mind, you know, I would be like walking around with a lot of guilt, even though you potentially saved a lot of other people.
Yeah. And that's another aspect of this, which is people that have to make these really difficult choices don't get away free. Whatever choice they make, there's a consequence to them personally, very often. Yes, very, very good observation. Okay, so this one is kind of a classic, right? And there's different variations on it, but it kind of tells you at a glance if instinctually you're a consequentialist, meaning that your ethical choices are based on the consequences of them, which I will tell you now, sounds good, but it's a slippery slope, man. It gets real messy if you really go down that road, as we'll see when we get a little further in. Or if you're a non-consequentialist who says, right's right, wrong's wrong. It's wrong to kill. In fact, if you're truly a non-consequentialist, you would never become a sniper to begin with, because you wouldn't be able to justify the taking of human life under any circumstances, which again sounds extreme, but it challenges us to think, are there inviolate standards? Are there things that we shouldn't do no matter what? And as you'll see as we get a little further in, the problem between this consequentialist, non-consequentialist thing is, if you go full bore consequentialist, meaning, you know what, if it produces more good than bad, it's okay. But more good than bad by whose standard, right? The sniper, the person being shot, and the innocent bystander have completely different standards of what produces the most good. So that's where it gets really, really tricky. All right, let me try another one on you here. By the way, this is my dog, Bo. That's one of my 2 dogs. And this is a what I call the dog story. All right, you're going to find this very icky, Brighton. So hang on. So a family's dog is killed by a car in front of their house. They heard that dog meat was delicious, so they cut up the dog's body, cooked it, and ate it for dinner. Is what they did wrong? after you get past the icky factor is what they did wrong.
Can I chime in here?
Absolutely. Anybody can chime in.
So I want to say I actually have a very different perspective on this than one might expect, and it's because I lived in China for 4 years of my life, and
Really interesting.
This is gonna sound like a stereotypical thing to say, but it's genuinely true. People eat dog there, and it's just completely normal. Everything, all morality is dictated by, well, okay.
I was going to say, whenever I hear the word all, I ding, 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 ding. Okay. But I think the direction you're going in is correct.
Lot of morality
a lot of it, yes,
is dictated by societal norms and what everybody deems is right and what deems is wrong. And here dogs are looked at, not sacredly, but it's definitely a taboo thing to eat them. The same way in other countries it's taboo to eat other things. Like there, if you ever touch a cat, people will shun you. So I've eaten dog before. It was actually pretty good.
Well,
I don't want to do it again.
Thank you. I'll ask the cliche question. And by the way, don't come to my house. I'm going to hide the dogs in the closet. I have to ask. Did it taste like chicken? What was the?
It's actually like a mix between chicken and beef. It's very interesting. There's nothing else that really tastes like it. It's actually not bad, but I'm not going to do it again because I've lived in the States so long now that it's kind of gotten to me. But I've never really thought of it as a terrible thing just because everybody around me was doing it.
Sure. Another interesting observation is when everybody around you was doing it.
Yeah. Is it okay?
Is it okay? Yes.
And it definitely changes your perspective. Now, what makes this wrong to me, and what still gives me that sour taste, is that everybody its owners were killed, and then it was eaten. So
they didn't kill the dog. The dog died the dog was hit by a car.
Wait,
that happens, right? So it's not. So you could argue, well, should this is nutritious? Should it just go to waste? There are people starving.
Could you go back to the slide? I think I read it wrong.
Yeah, I don't think the owners died.
No, the owners.
A family's dog was killed by a car.
And it's not their dog to eat.
You heard that the dog's meat was delicious. So they cut up the dog's body and cooked and ate it for dinner. I did read it wrong. This is literally what would happen.
So there are people, and by the way, some of these questions that I'm giving to you have been used in research studies to try to get a sense of, why do people react the way they do to certain scenarios. All right. This is a different sphere of ethics. This is not so much to do with concrete right and wrong, but it has to do with, yes, part of it's cultural. In fact, a lot of it's cultural. And, what they find is that things that people have this visceral reaction to, there really is no objective judgment of right or wrong. But it's visceral and it's strong. And in some cases, interesting observation, people react more strongly to this question in almost all cases than they do to the sniper question. They can step back from the sniper question and they can philosophize and, they can intellectualize. You talk about a dead dog and it gets very personal. They have a stronger emotional reaction to this. And of course, you could argue, as I'm sure you've heard this before, if you want to do it dogs are very intelligent animals and they're our companions and they're loyal and they're, I love dogs. I mean, I love my two to death. But if you want to base it on intelligence, the capacity for loyalty, pigs are smarter than most breeds of dog. And in fact, some people keep them as pets and they're awesome. They go for walks. You can train them. They're loyal companions. They have every characteristic that a dog has. And yet we don't think twice about eating a ham and cheese on rye. So, all right.
The issue I have with this is it's not so much eating of the dog, which that's kind of like, but to me, but I get that that's sort of like that's not concrete. The thing that gets me is that they ate the dog the same night it died, which kind of shows that they didn't care. They did not care about the animal in the first place.
Interesting. So you bring up a really, God, you guys are smart. You bring up a really good point. Some things that on their face are wrong, and I put that in air quotes, could be made right if you followed a particular ritual, right? So a ritual could have been, in this case, they could have said, they could have had a remembrance ceremony about the dog's life, and they could have done something, all right? Very similar in many Native American cultures. Of course, you know, when you were living on the land, killing and eating animals is how you survived. I mean, the hunt meant everything. But in many of those cultures, it wasn't just a question of shooting a deer, dragging it back to, you know, to the village and sharing the meat after you butchered it. There was a ritual of asking permission, and there was a ritual of acknowledging the spirit of the deer, showing great respect, in other words. So if you did it one way, and that was one reason that, you know, the Native Americans could not understand when the white man gets to the West and they begin to slaughter these buffalo. I mean, yes, they killed buffalo too, but they did it in this very ritualistic way. The buffalo's still dead, but white man did it the wrong way. So that there's this element of sanctification. Okay, very good observation. All right, let me try another one on you. This gets even ickier. All right, I'm going to warn you, there's an ick factor to all of them. So here's Jennifer. Jennifer works in a hospital pathology lab. She's a vegetarian because she thinks it's wrong to kill animals. One night she has to incinerate a fresh human cadaver, and she thinks it's a waste to throw away perfectly edible flesh. So she cuts off a piece of the body, takes it home, cooks it, and eats it. Poor Brighton, I think she's going to lose it right here on screen. I can see her face. What do you think about that? It's so disgusting, you're speechless.
Yeah, it just seems like a little contradictory as well. It's like, because it's like, okay, I actually, like, I also don't eat meat. So the previous question, I was just kind of like, yeah, I would never do that.
Right, not me. But maybe you're curious. You want to know, like, you know, does it taste like chicken? Does it taste like dog? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this. Like, personally, like, I think it's, yeah, I mean, yeah, that is really gross, but also, isn't that like a law to like not do that, or am I just making it
well
up?
Yes, it isn't against the law. That's a whole other issue, is what,
yeah,
you know,
so it's like,
is legality and morality one and the same? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah, so I don't know, because I know, yeah, this is very, very taboo, very against the law, very.
You said the magic word, taboo.
Yeah, yeah.
And one thing that all cultures, first of all, taboos do differ from culture to culture.
Yeah.
Right? More so than other things. For example, and this would qualify all morality as culturally relevant or relative, because it isn't. Life, for the most part, has a value in every culture. If it didn't, the culture wouldn't have survived. All right, it's a biological necessity to value life. Otherwise, you don't reproduce it and protect it. That said, things like eating dog, eating a piece of a human body, eating the piece of the human body probably is going to be taboo in virtually every culture there is, with the possible exception of maybe some tribes tucked away on islands somewhere for whom cannibalism is acceptable. And there are. I mean, so you can't say all, but most. And the reason I'm doing this is not to ick you out. I'm doing this to kind of get you sensitive to within any ethical or moral dilemma, there's the big question, and then there's a bunch of little questions behind the big question that gets you to why you make the choice you make. And I want to make you guys aware of that as we move forward, because as you dive deeper into this philosophical stuff, yeah, it makes your head hurt, because sometimes they're quite frankly confounding, and they were confusing in their own time, and they're even more confusing to us today. Try to get into their head and understand not only the big questions that they're addressing, but the little questions behind the big questions. All right, so that's why I'm marching you through this. Okay, here's another one, kind of along the same line, a flag story. All right, American flag that a veteran displayed in front of his house became frayed and worn with the passage of time. When he replaced it, he decided to cut up his old flag and use the pieces as cleaning rags. Good, bad, or indifferent?
This irks me
Okay.
because I have a very conservative family, and the flag is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And how using it like that,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I don't think it's wrong per se, but I wouldn't do it, and it would bug me if somebody else did it.
And I think you and I share this, and I'll let you say it. What is when you think about it, what is it that makes this wrong for you specifically?
It's disrespectful to the flag.
Right. But what does the flag symbolize that makes it disrespectful?
The country.
Exactly. And to take it deeper, and I can speak to this myself, if you've had family that have served in the military, family that have risked their lives, given their lives to defend the country, the flag becomes a symbol of that. And it may not seem rational to some people, but as you say, you had an immediate reaction to this, and many people do. Others look at it and say, yeah, all right, it's not respectful, but okay, it's a piece of cloth. He's a veteran. It's not like he's, I'm going to assume he's patriotic. So, in other words, would it change the calculus if it wasn't a veteran, if it was a member of Antifa, for example? Would that make it even worse? Or is it the same thing?
It would be pretty much the same thing to me because it's the same act.
Okay, fair enough. Other perspectives on this? What do you guys think? And to connect this to things that are more current, well, the kneeling for the flag thing has died down a bit now, and I hope it stays died down. But one of the reasons that it became such a divisive symbol when certain players began to kneel for the anthem, even though they had one set of reasons for why they were doing it, either they didn't think, they didn't figure into this, or they didn't care that it was going to so viscerally offend half of the population or half of their fan base. And so we ended up getting into this sort of nonsensical argument over really what wasn't the issue. All right. It's understandable if you have a social concern about racism or the value of life, absolutely legitimate. And if you take an act during a national anthem or when the flag is displayed to dramatize that, well, fair enough. But then you've got to understand how are they going to take this? How are they going to receive it? So if your intention was to get people to take notice and respect your point of view, maybe that was the wrong symbol. I don't know. All right. But something certainly worth thinking about. Okay. All right. I'm not going to do all these because this is just still the cultural relative. So here's what it comes down to. Right, wrong, it depends. And here is the $25,000 question for this morning or this afternoon. What is truth? Just a little question. I know Brighton knows what truth is. I can tell. What's truth? I mean, we talk a lot about it, right? And isn't all of ethics and philosophy an attempt to get at it? So if it's an it must exist. If so, what is it?
Do you mind if I say something?
Go ahead.
If I had to, there's probably so much more to this, but just on a feeling, on a whim, I'd say the truth is anything that's objectively provable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe that would be like a.
No, that's fair. No, don't talk yourself out of it. That's all right.
Okay. All right. Let's go with that.
Put a stake in the ground. Objectively provable. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And let me dissect the two words. Objectively, meaning, in theory, anyone looking at the set of facts would agree to one interpretation of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. All right. And it's because it's proven, because you can actually measure it, prove it, it's concrete, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Patrick, what do you think? I know you were chiming in there a little bit.
Yeah, it's anything that's like objectively provable. That's like definite version,
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Okay.
Like,
Hannah?
like fire being hot, stuff like that.
Okay, Hannah, Zachary, Brighton, what do you guys think? Is there, I mean, that's a definition, objectively provable. Now, is that possible is maybe the next thing to think about.
Well, I'm sure there are some, I can't think of any examples, but I'm sure there are some things that aren't objectively provable that we consider to be truths.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the fact that, those are considered to be truths without having any measurable proof behind them.
Okay. All right, fair enough. But then
I'm not saying that they're untrue. I'm just saying, like, truth isn't just things that are objectively provable.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're a spiritual person, if you're a religious person, there's no question that you accept certain things as being true without the ability to objectively prove them. That's what faith is. Okay. And obviously, a belief in the divine and morality and ethics have always been closely connected to one another. I know that, I'll give you a little hint. Most of the Enlightenment era philosophers, actually even prior to that, even the Greeks, were trying to, in their own way, prove that morality existed without divinity, okay? That there was something more to right and wrong than just the command of a divine being. And we're gonna, one of our later sessions, this is a whole hour plus, we're gonna take a deep dive into that and where that comes from and what the implications are. But yes, in a case like that, there are lots of truths that people live their lives by for which they have no objective proof. So here's the counter. This actually happened not in my ethics class, but in my political science class a few years ago. I forget even what the discussion was. And I'm going to, tip my hand here a little bit, as not being the objective academician that I probably should be. I forget what we were talking about. And one of my students stood up and she said, well, my psychology instructor says that there is no such thing as truth, that everybody has their own truth. I had one of those immediate visceral reactions. And I think the word I said, if I recall correctly, and I shouldn't have said it this way, was bullshit. I think I said bullshit. I might have not said bullshit, but I'm pretty sure that's what I said. Now, I'm also sure that she went back and told her psychology instructor what her nasty political science instructor said. So who knows? This comes down to logic, actually. You can actually logically prove the truth exists. One of the reasons we know the truth exists is that we spend so damn much time trying to find it. And that might seem like a backhanded proof, but if the answer to what is truth is that there is no truth, there is no objectively provable truth to anything, then what's the point of any of this, right? What's the point of looking for it? I think a better way to answer this question is there one truth or are there many? And by the way, whenever you hear somebody use the phrase, what's true for me, run, because that's intellectual laziness to the extreme. I think the reality probably is this. Yeah, there is a truth about many things. The problem is, as this silly cartoon illustrates, as human beings, we have limited perspective. We see the truth through our own eyes. We see the truth through our own biases, through our cultural construct, as we saw from some of these dilemmas that we talked about earlier. That doesn't mean truth doesn't exist. It just means that our human nature prevents us from seeing all of it. And what I hope happens for you guys during this course, even though it's very limited from what we can do in this online world, what I hope happens is that you become more aware than you are now of what human elements are preventing you perhaps from seeing other versions of the truth, from seeing the truth from another perspective. One thing I loved when I have done this class live, in fact, the last time I did it live, it was great. We had the whole bell curve in the room, right? I had my resident atheists who sat on one side. I had my very spiritual believers who sat on the other side. I had libertarians, conservatives, liberals. We had two transgender people in the room. So I had this whole spectrum of perspectives on the truth. So every discussion everyone got represented. And what was amazing to watch, and we'll never be able to replicate it in this world, what was amazing to watch was when they challenged each other, when an atheist and a true believer sort of went toe to toe about a particular issue, you could see, despite their intent, you could see them starting to see the world differently. You could see them backing up and saying, oh, I get it now. And it broadened their ability to see truth. And that's the thing I hope you get a little piece of from this class. And I had one more dilemma, but I'm going to save it for later because I think we've already covered the ground. I'm going to stop at this point and say, questions, comments, statements of moral outrage. What do you think? And was this valuable? Did you find this kind of an interaction helpful at all? And you won't hurt my feelings if you say no.
Yes,
I think so.
absolutely.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you ever had anybody like get really like grossed out or offended about like a scenario that you've posed?
Well, if they got grossed out and offended, they were very professional about it and they didn't tell me as much. I had another student who said, she said, I go home and tell my father these and he's grossed out and offended, but I'm not. I said, okay, well, fortunately your dad's not taking the class, so I guess I'm safe so far. And again, I don't do it to gross people out or offend them. I do it to help to make them think. Oh, listen, there's one, I don't know what, I'll say this for a future class, but I'll give you a little hint. The one that got the most reaction, and we'll talk about it later, the one that got the most reaction, and it was, again, one of these questions that's typically used in these psychological, ethical, moral surveys. It has to do with a brother and sister.
I don't like where this is going.
Well, see, Britton, you've got a dirty mind. And they're traveling, they're taking a vacation, and they're in Paris, right? And the French are crazy. And all of a sudden, they have this thought that they're very close. They've always been very close, and they just wonder what it would be like to have a physically intimate relationship just one time. And they would never do it again. They would never talk about it again. It would just be their little secret. Man, people were squirming in there. I can see you're squirming in your seat now. It's all right. And that takes us down a whole other road of what's right and wrong and why it's right and wrong. So to answer your question, Britton, yeah, but you know what? If you really want to do ethics, if you want to really challenge your morality, you've got to be willing to look at really icky stuff in the face and say, okay, I know what I feel, but I also have to think about there's this head heart thing that always goes on, right? Real issues of right and wrong come in through the heart for most of us. I mean, unless you're truly autistic and don't connect that way, they come in through the heart. We have an initial reaction. It could be, that's awful, I would never do that. Then hopefully you go to the other side of it and you say, now rationally, objectively, in quotes, why do I feel that way? And can I morally justify why I feel the way I feel and why I make the judgment that I make, right? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I mean,
absolutely.
That's part of why we do this. Anybody else? In fact, and if you found it valuable, thank you. We will do more. I mean, we had a good number here. Hopefully we can get more people to join in. Any other suggestions while I've got you here from you guys of anything I could do better to make this journey easier for you? I mean, I know we're still early into it, but any feedback for me?
I was just wondering about that. I might be butchering it, but Phaedo discussion board. Plato's Phaedo.
That's okay.
I still can't find the materials for that, for the discussion board.
I think that's Brighton. You just went in there and found the other one. Is it? Are they both in there, or is one of them still missing?
So
Credo is in there.
I think what it is on the weekly schedule. It says the Phaedo excerpt, but then excerpt. But then when you go to the discussion, it's the Credo excerpt. Oh my God, excerpt.
Excerpt. That's okay.
That
we
word.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. So yeah, are we supposed to read an excerpt from Phaedo this week?
Well, yeah, look, I don't care if you read it this week or next week. Yes, you are supposed to read it. I think what happened, and it's what happened with the Credo thing. When I was transferring things into the shell from last semester's course, which basically it's a very elaborate cut and paste exercise, and then you got to do 15 things inside D2L to make it do what it's supposed to do. I think what I may have done is inadvertently put some things out of order. So in this case, and if you catch that, again, that's a good catch. Let me know. But for the time being, it is in there, right? It's just not where you would typically hope to find it. Is that what you're saying, right? And I can go in and check too.
Yeah, I think so, but I didn't know also if there was an assignment for the Phaedo excerpt.
I don't believe there is one tied directly to that. I don't think there is.
Okay.
And there is material that's in there that doesn't have a direct connection to any assignment that you have to submit, but hopefully the reason it's in there is to help you respond to the assignments in a deeper way, right? Like,
Right.
especially we're pretty soon, I think next week or the week following, you're going to get into logic and arguments, good arguments, bad arguments, logical fallacies. That can get really confusing. And it's much more fun to teach that in class because we can put up examples and go back and forth and have fun and laugh at it because they are kind of fun. There's a video in there that I produced that's just called Bad Arguments. I'll give you a hint. I mean, it's not connected directly to any assignment, but if I think it's worth 17 minutes of your time, I think you'll come out of that going, okay, now I know what an ad hominem is. Now I get, what an appeal to ignorance is, as opposed to trying to read about it where sometimes the words begin to circle back on each other. Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments, feedback? All right. We got some snow coming this Sunday. Rock and roll. They say anyway.
Wait, really?
Didn't you hear? Oh yeah. Well, they're kind of, they're hedging their bets, but there's a nor'easter that's going to start spinning on Sunday. And right now they're just saying snow beginning Sunday morning and ending Tuesday. So.
Wow. Okay.
Not sure what that means.
I love snow.
Haven't seen much lately, so it'll be nice. All right, you guys, have a great weekend. And yes, we will have one of these again very soon. Again, thanks so much for being a part of it, and see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you. This really helped me
Good to
understand
hear.
it better.
Thank you, sir.